Lost Media covers a wide variety of topics such as film, television, music, literature, and so much more. And all of these topics have masterpieces, with masterpiece being described by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary as a work done with extraordinary skill. And I personally think that these 5 pieces of Lost Media are masterpieces. So today, I'll be talking about 5 lost masterpieces. But before we start, I really think I need to specify that these are my opinions. So if you disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. Anyways, let's start this countdown. Superman Lives is a film being made in the 1990s and was going to be a loose adaptation of The Death of Superman, and was intended to be a reboot of the Superman film franchise, with the film's plot having the alien supercomputer Brainiac killing Superman by blocking out the sun and unleashing Doomsday on Metropolis. However, later on in the film, Superman would be resurrected. The idea of the film started after the screenplay adaptation of The Death of Superman was pitched to Warner Bros. By Kevin Smith, with the film going to be directed by Tim Burton and is going to be produced by John Peters, with the screenplays being written by Wesley Strick and Dan Gilroy, with Nicolas Cage going to play the lead role of Superman, which is probably the most famous thing from this film, with pre-production going as far as having test footage of Nicolas Cage in the actual Superman costume that was going to be used in the film, which was designed by Jose Fernandez. However, in April of 1998, the film was abruptly cancelled just 3 weeks before filming would begin, with the film being cancelled mostly due to the fact that the budget of the film was growing at an alarming rate, with $30 million being spent on just pre-production alone, which honestly sucks because this film could have been awesome and had some of the most wacky ideas, such as Superman fighting ninjas and having Superman fight a giant spider at the end, but all that was made for the film are some storyboards and Nicolas Cage doing some costume tests for the film. Sketches from My Sweetheart the Drunk is going to be the second album of the late legendary singer-songwriter Jeff Buckley, and it was going to be the follow-up to Buckley's previous absolute masterpiece of an album, Grace, with Buckley beginning recording of the album in mid to late 1996. However, Buckley was unsatisfied with these 96 recordings, moved to Memphis, Tennessee to re-record the album, but most importantly, destroyed the 96 recordings, with re-recording of the album set to begin early to mid-1997. However, on May 29, 1997, Jeff Buckley would go swimming in the Mississippi River, where he would unfortunately drown. With Buckley's passing, progress on the album would grind to a halt, with the album receiving an unfinished posthumous release on May 26, 1998, with the album largely consisting of songs that were thought as rough sketches. But according to the documentary Amazing Grace Jeff Buckley scrapped an entire album's worth of material. Fortunately, a few never-before-heard tracks from sketches have been leaked onto the internet, such as You and I and the lyricless song Peace Offering. It's so frustrating knowing we could have had such a masterpiece of music if Buckley was given more time to re-record sketches, as most of the reviews of the 98 release give it on average an 8 out of 10. But all we have of these original recordings are a few leaked tracks. The Day the Clown Cried is a film that was made in 1972 and was directed and stars famous comedy star Jerry Lewis and was produced by Nathan Waxberger, with the film's plot following Lewis's character Helmut Dork, who is a washed-up circus clown who lives in Nazi Germany, who becomes a political prisoner due to him drunkenly mocking Adolf Mustache Man. And during his time in the concentration camps, Dork entertains the kids there by putting on a performance, and ultimately becomes a twisted version of the Pied Piper, leading kids into the camps. But due to the large guilt Dork gets by leading kids into their demise, Dork decides to remain with the kids, with the film ending with Dork taking the young girl's hand as the two walk into the chamber. Depressing stuff, with the original script for the film actually being written a full decade before by Joan O'Brien and Charles Denton in 1962, with filming beginning in Sweden in 1972. But the production of the film was plagued with issues, with film equipment arriving late or just going missing, and the necessary money needed to make the film was nowhere in sight, with the budget for the film running out before the film's completion, leading to Lewis having to pay out of his own pocket $2 million just to complete the film alone. But the film would still be plagued by trouble even after the filming completed, with Waxberger threatening to sue Lewis due to the fact that he released to the press that Waxberger had failed to make good on his financial obligations. And to ensure the film wouldn't become lost, Lewis took a rough cut of the film with him whilst the studio kept the negatives. with Lewis appearing on the Dick Cavett show stating that the film would take 6 to 7 weeks to edit and that it would be screened at the Cannes Film Festival and would be released in the United States after. But the film would ultimately not be released due to O'Brien not being impressed by the film, leading to the studio not being able to secure the rights to the screenplay, with any production on the film ceasing after this, but the film becoming a sought-after film by film historians. However, the film would ultimately become a mystery for years because of how bad the film was said to be, with Jerry Lewis himself calling it a bad film, with the film being lost for decades, with Lewis only sentimenting that fact, stating numerous times that the film would never get a release. However, in 2015, Lewis personally donated his copy of the film to the Library of Congress under the condition that it would not be seen for 10 years. Right off the success of 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick is planning on making a full-scale biographical film about the French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, with Kubrick watching every film made on the Emperor up to that point, and aspiring to do much better than the films previously made, and also reading hundreds of biographies on the French Emperor, and even going as far as gaining access to Napoleon's personal memoirs, which sounds like hard dedication, but if you know Kubrick, this shouldn't be that surprising, with Kubrick having dedicated 2 years of research and studying on Napoleon's life, and going as far as to film on the very turf the Emperor fought on, hiring 40,000 soldiers and 10,000 cavalrymen from the Romanian military, and having taken the same exact steps that Napoleon took, literally. And to cut costs, the soldiers would wear paper costumes that look exactly like cloth on screen, with MGM set to produce the film. Due to Kubrick's ambition and dedication, Kubrick really thought he was making the greatest film ever made. However, this dedication would ultimately go to waste because of just the cost of the project, but also due to the fact that films made about Napoleon around that time were all box office bombs, and MGM didn't want to take the risk with the film. And all that exists of it today are a few behind the scenes photos of cast members in their paper costumes. The Trojan Cycle is a series of epics that includes famous works such as the Odyssey and Iliad. However, there are a lot of lost entries in the Trojan Cycle, with the first being the Aethiopus. In this poem, which was 5 books long, the Amazon, led by Penthesilea, came to the aid of the Trojans, followed by Memnon, king of the Ethiopians. More notably, it is the book where Achilles was killed by an arrow shot by Paris, though not before he kills Penthesilea and Memnon. An epic consisting of 4 books, this text included the deaths of Ajax the Great and Paris, and the building of the wooden horse on the advice of Athena. The Sack of Ilium was 2 books attributed to Archintius and Miletus. It consisted of the Trojans letting the horse inside the city after some debate, leading to the subsequent sacking of Troy. These were 5 books of disputed authorship, and this was the first post-war epic. It showed the return of the Achaeans aside from Odysseus, who struggled to reach home thanks to the anger of Athena due to their behavior during the sack of Troy. They all got home in the end, aside from Mr. Ajax, though Agamemnon was killed by his wife. The Telegony is the final epic of the cycle, and consisted of 2 books by Egamon of Cyrene or Cynthian of Sparta. It told the tale of the death of Augeas and the fates of his wife and children. The only things surviving from these epics are summaries from ancient writers from the time.